It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show on your screens tonight. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show for your home delight. We're talking about Age of Sigmar and anything else that is cool. Talking about Warhammer Fantasy, it's easy to learn the rules. Andy and Remington, Andy and Remington, Andy and Remington Show.
Is Warhammer Plus any good? All this and more on tonight's episode of the Andy and Rem Show, episode 173. Quite a healthy number of episodes. Now, we're joined, of course, by Mr. Remington. There has been a guess in the chat onto whether Remington blinds are open or closed this week. So as I remove the thumbnail, all will be revealed. And there you go. They are, in fact, open. So, well done to Wayne. No, actually, Wayne got it wrong. Yeah, Wayne thinks it's been a bright day, so I think Rem has closed blinds to reduce the glare on his PC monitor. No, so no good, Wayne.
How are you, Warhammer friends? Isn't it nice to be back? Not on a Tuesday, so sorry about that. I'm back at work, and that sucks. But still here. It's just we're doing it on a Wednesday this evening.
New time slot, same red hot, sizzling, spicy, succulent, tender, moist, finger licking good, dishlicious chat.
You better believe it, Andy. And what's all this Warhammer Plus business?
Well, before we get into that, there is a juicier piece of content that people see that would never be available on Plus. You promised that there was going to be a Remington's Pillow Talk Q&A special.
I did.
What's up with that?
I'm just gathering all the questions, and I'm trying to find a good time to actually do it. So it's going to happen. It's going to happen when you least expect it, like all my videos, but it will happen.
So the people should still be subscribed to your channel then? They shouldn't just rage unsubscribe because this content that was promised is never coming?
Well, my channel has actually been received very well recently because I've received one more subscriber in the last 2 weeks. So I'm on 667 subscribers. That's progress, guys. It's progress, if nothing else. Hello.
You don't want to be lingering on 666, do you, really? You're just asking for trouble.
Andy, I'm afraid you might not ever get to see it because it might come out on RemCon Plus.
Well, I thought we were doing Andy and Rem Plus, and Remington's Pillow Talk was going to be one of the flagship shows on that streaming service.
Well, Andy and Rem Plus is possibly the sort of the add-on to it, like the super committed. Anyway,
so yeah, tell us, what would you like to see on Andy and Rem Plus, in addition to Warhammer Plus?
What?
Who,
me or
the audience? Tell us, what would you like to see on Andy and Rem Plus? For a monthly subscription fee, you get access to Remington's Pillow Talk. What else would you like to see on there? So, speaking of subscription services, Warhammer Plus. It's hit. We've been perusing the content and digesting and absorbing it and analysing the contents of our viewing stomachs, if you will, in the lab. Scientific work has taken place. Findings. So far, shall we start off with the actual logging into Warhammer Plus debacle?
Yeah, it wasn't like, if you take some, say, Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon, it's pretty straightforward, isn't it, signing up? And it's just that one place where you go, and there you go. Now, we found that wasn't the case with Warhammer Plus. There's various different web pages and websites that you've got to go to. Until we finally, you did a lovely video, Andy, on the day of it, and basically you said, go to mywarhammer.com.
Yes. It feels like the streaming service was supposed to be called My Warhammer. And then at the last minute, maybe, someone said, no, that doesn't sound very good. But Plus, that's in at the moment. How about Warhammer Plus? That sounds kind of cool. And then they just didn't have time because they'd already got all these domains ready. And
yeah, I mean, the thing is, what you're signing up for is a bunch of stuff, right? Warhammer TV is just one of those things. Okay.
Yes.
So, and so what else do you get apart from Warhammer TV, which
Well,
we'll go into a bit
when you
more?
make your account on My Warhammer and then sign up for Warhammer Plus via that, there is, as far as I know, there still isn't a Warhammer Plus website, by the way, which would be really convenient to have all of it under one umbrella, but they don't have that. So you then have to go to Warhammer TV or Warhammer Vault to actually access the content. And then also you have the various apps, the AOS one, which isn't actually out at the moment.
Yeah. So you got this Warhammer TV, and that's where you can see the animations, you can see battle reports, you can see painting masterclasses. You've got the Warhammer 40K app, which I assume is going to be things like rules and putting together armies, right? With points. And what's the vaults, Andy? What's Warhammer
The
vaults?
Vault, that is where you can see all the archived content. For example, they've got recent White Dwarf issues on there. They've got every episode of Warhammer Visions on there, that kind of short-lived publication that wasn't around for a great deal of time. It wasn't very well received from what I remember, but it seemed to stretch to 30 issues somehow.
Wow.
I
And
don't
that's
remember it being around
basically,
that long.
I think I bought one of those actually years ago when ooh, they had, it wasn't the Tomb Kings. They had the sort of what they're called. The Mortarks came out, and there was a bunch of 8th edition undead stuff that come out. I remember seeing Visions then, but basically Visions is like a very thick magazine with really good paint jobs of Warhammer figures, isn't it?
Yes, they
The
basically
dioramas.
took all the nice artwork, all the nice painted miniatures, and the nice photos out of White Dwarf and put them into a separate magazine and tried to sell that. And I
Now,
don't
now,
think it did very well.
now, Andy, if you told me I could step into the Warhammer Vault, what am I stepping into? Because potentially it could be a bit of a bottomless pit of 30, 40 years worth of content.
It should be like that, and hopefully with time they'll slowly add that bottomless pit. But what they seem to have for now, I assume, because the recent publications will be created in a very, very digital kind of way that they have already archived. So it's not much effort to just hit a button and then upload that onto the Warhammer Vault, is it? Because
Right.
that stuff is already stored that way. Whereas it would probably take more time and effort to go back and presumably scan in articles from like White Dwarf 56. I assume that they probably don't have all those things scanned in somewhere if nothing like that is available on the Vault yet.
Right. Well, I've just entered the vault as we're talking, and it seems I can. There's a bunch of locked. Oh, I need to sign in. This is the other thing. You have to keep signing in to these various sites, right? Because it's not everything in one place. So, yeah, it's automatically signed me in now. So it's remembered.
Well, what
Uh,
Wayne says is My Warhammer is like a
yeah.
hub for the Vault and Warhammer Plus. I'm fine with that. It kind of is a hub, but you still have to go to the separate websites to actually access the content. And at no point during the lead up to Warhammer Plus did they tell you that this was how you did it. Even on the day it was launched, people weren't actually told what to do until about 12 hours into the launch when they released a flowchart.
Right. Well, it says I've got White Dwarf 460 to 457 or 460 to how many editions? 10. Okay, so there's a year's worth of White Dwarf then, going up to
Yes.
August 20.
So
So okay,
hopefully they'll go way far back and
right.
just they wouldn't have to be Wayne's talking about well before digital arts existed. How can they make PDFs? So if they just scanned in pictures of the pages, you wouldn't
Yeah,
even have to be able to like mess with them at all or search for keywords or anything. I'd just be
yeah.
happy if they just had high quality images of all the pages there to access. And
Now,
they
when
could
you
put certain keywords on each issue, but you just wouldn't be able to search the text
sure.
as much as you would if it was a full PDF.
Okay. Well, when you choose one of these White Dwarfs or Visions, or you've got Shadespire, the Law, Nightvault, the Law, it can take quite a little bit of time, can't it, to um, upload or download or stream because they're really high quality images, right? And some of these editions have a lot of pages in. So, yeah, that's one thing I noticed looking at on my laptop. But yeah, it's potentially a real treasure trove that. But isn't the danger, Andy, that people will stop buying White Dwarfs?
Well, I don't even know if White Dwarf is even selling that well at the moment, and I don't think they have the most recent edition on there. But presumably, it can't be selling that amazingly if they're going to start putting it out digitally like this.
Well, I still see it. I still see it in WH Smiths and in Tesco's, big superstores. Still there, right?
Maybe there is some demand for it, but
Yeah.
people mostly just read stuff on their phones now, don't they?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I need a lot of free time to delve into this back catalogue, so that's pretty cool. So we've got the Warhammer Vault.
There is one thing to be noted on the Vault though that I
Go.
picked up
What
as
is
I
that?
was looking through it, because
Yeah.
some of the content on there are old or fairly old, fairly recent-ish full supplements for previous editions of the game, that kind of thing. You'll see that
Right,
on
yeah.
there
Right, yeah.
rather than like army books, battle tomes on there, which
I want.
doesn't seem to be a thing at the moment because
I,
people are still going to buy those because they need to play their armies and they can charge you good money for those. But out of date things that probably aren't going to sell anymore, they can stick all those on there without worrying. But they have a little disclaimer on it that says certain things have been removed. So certain things that aren't relevant to the rules anymore, maybe certain units that don't exist, their profiles will have been removed. So we're not getting the untouched uploaded versions. They are actually tinkering with it, which is
right.
something that you'll see if you watch anything on a streaming service. You'll notice that sometimes, I encountered it while watching a film the other day, actually, some of the old music has been replaced on films
Interesting.
because there's some kind of separation of the rights between owning the film and owning the rights to the music in the film, so that when it's uploaded onto something new or a new distribution source, they don't have the rights to every aspect of it, so they have to change music around. And
Right, yeah.
sometimes things are edited to take out kind of outdated jokes that are a little bit unsavory nowadays. So it's not a new thing for things to be edited before they're put back out into a vault service, as it were.
Well, I see Warhammer Visions here. I've just opened it up. Issue number 8 from September 2014. And on the front cover is what's that big Dark Lord of Death called?
The
His
Dark Lord
face.
of Death,
Yes.
Nagash.
Nagash. Yeah, so Nagash is on the front. So this is kind of cool. Especially if you've just gotten into, say, Age of Sigmar or Warhammer in the last couple of years, right? This is a really cool thing. You can look back at all the stuff here as a PDF, really nice quality. That's kind of cool. That's a treasure trove. Wouldn't it be cool if you could go back to 1980s White Dwarfs? Do you think
Yes,
they'll ever
and
do
I
that?
hope they do, but I feel like they would work backwards.
Oh, interesting.
That's
Okay.
what that would make sense, wouldn't it? So you get to the older stuff towards the end. So the more
Yeah.
recent things that are kind of still relevant today, slowly work back through those, and then maybe in a couple of years they eventually get to some really old stuff. Maybe
That,
sprinkle in some really ancient stuff in there as you go along, just to
yeah.
for a bit of variety. I don't know
Now,
how much they want to push some of that stuff. But if you look back at an old like issue of White Dwarf number 2 or 3, would any of the content in there actually be in any way relevant to any of GW's current products? I would suggest not.
no,
But
it's more like a public archive, really, isn't it?
yeah, but is
Of
that something they're interested in doing, even though there's no way that that could then spin off any kind of revenue for them? Or is that in itself enough of an attraction to get more people subscribing to Warhammer Plus?
Yeah, well, now we're approaching the elephant in the room, Andy, and that is, I think, the biggest pushback recently against this Warhammer Plus has been the lack of content. So let's address that to start with. What's your view on this?
The lack of content, I think, is a valid criticism, but there's only so much you can consume, and the amount they're charging, I think they might just about get away with it as long as the content flows freely. If they're just uploading 2 videos, like 90 minutes worth of content per week, then I'm not sure that's going to be enough to satisfy people.
Well, I'm just going to go to Warhammer TV right now, and because it's Wednesday, they've added a few new bits. But as of last week, there were, I think, 3 episodes of Hammer and Bolter, which is it's a really cool, like manga style cartoon. there was the first edition of Angels of Death, which is a Blood Angels animation. It's pretty dark, and we had 3 cinematic trailers. We had, a Citadel masterclass on Faces, and we had an Age of Sigmar battle report. And unless I'm mistaken, that's all we had. And we did have actually, we had some learn to play videos. So now I'm looking at it refreshed this Wednesday. We've got learn to play Blood Bowl. We've got Diachasm, Necromunda. We've got learn to play Age of Sigmar, Kill Team, learn to play Warhammer 40k.
A lot of the learn to play stuff isn't exclusive though. That was already up on the YouTube.
Okay, okay. Well, in that case, we've got a new battle report, but this time it's the Orcs versus Blood Angels, and I've watched half of that. It's pretty cool. Enjoyed that actually, and I
Yes,
must say, I think the battle reports are really high
we'll
quality.
have a really good chat about all the actual
Yeah.
Warhammer TV content in a minute. Definitely,
Yeah.
plenty to dive into on that. Shall we have a look at what some of the comments
Yeah.
have been saying here?
Go.
So Wayne says, "Don't expect much for 96p a week." It's all very well saying that, but when you compare it to other services that are also competing for our money, it's only a little bit cheaper than some of the other streaming services out there, isn't it?
Yes, but Andy, I think they want to take the fan base with them. So each week there's something to look forward to. You know, a seed grows slowly into
But people
a
are
tree.
going to be
You don't
looking
wanna-
at it and comparing the content to something like a Netflix that has
That's unfair to do that. It's unfair. This is very niche.
It has hundreds of hours of thousands of hours of stuff on Netflix. You compare it to Disney Plus, it's probably the same story by now with all the things they've acquired. So
bear in mind,
people will look at it that way because it's a comparison, it's a subscription service that's streaming entertainment.
But
for
Andy,
you.
for the first 5 years, Netflix didn't make its own content. Amazon didn't make its own content, right? Disney bought up companies as well as having its own back catalog. So Warhammer is making the content that it's showing. So there's never going to be as much content that it can put up
If the
unless it
content
uses
is
other people's stuff.
if it's mind-blowing content, then it's going to draw people in regardless. Because, as Wayne says, no other service on the planet has Warhammer content. If you really want to see all that professional Warhammer, official Warhammer stuff, then it's the place to go. But people are looking at how much they're going to be spending on this, I'm sure. Now,
Well, you get something for the loyalty, right? What did you get? Well, it's a day too late now, but if you subscribed before August the 31st, you got the £10 free gift voucher. All right, so that's like 2 months worth of subscription already. And if you subscribe for the whole year, you can get that free exclusive model,
yes.
which is probably worth 15-20 quid on its own. So I don't know.
Yeah, so
Doesn't
I don't
seem
think too
too
many
bad.
people are going to gawk at the price. I think it's low enough, so even if the quality or the amount of content they're putting out isn't that amazing immediately, I think people stick with it for a while because it's not too wallet busting immediately, is it? Price. So,
No, not at all.
they are going to have to keep people hooked, though. They're going to have to put out more content than they are currently. I don't think this would satisfy people. If you look at the way people treat the kind of thing they would watch on Amazon Prime or Netflix, they don't just watch 2 episodes a week. They tend to just sit there and watch like 10 episodes back to back, don't they? And at the moment, you don't have that luxury with this service because they don't have the catalogue yet.
True, but it's a different kind of service, isn't it? You know, would you binge watch battle reports?
I think people would, potentially, but it's a different service, but they're inviting comparisons with the way it's presented. Whether it was supposed to be that kind of immediately comparable service, I don't know, but the name Warhammer Plus, first thing you think of is, well, that's just like Disney Plus, but for Warhammer stuff. So they're inviting that. It's not a stretch to think that you should be comparing this to the other streaming services. That's what they've been pretty much pushing it as.
I think what we can confidently say, it's too early to judge it right now because in 2-3 months' time, 6 months, a year's time, there's going to be a lot of content on there, a heck of a lot. So somebody that would subscribe to it down the line is going to get, you know, a ton of stuff to watch, right?
William says he got through all of it in an evening and could have done with a little extra. I think that's the process a lot of people would have regarding this.
But hasn't Wednesday come around very quickly, right?
It
You know,
generally does. When you get to a certain age, time does fly.
it does, and now we've already got more content.
Shall we talk
So
about the actual content itself then?
go on then.
So, you mentioned the battle reports, so let's start with those. The Age of Sigmar battle report, the only main criticisms I've seen of that have been that maybe they were a bit sloppy and got a couple of the rules mixed up, which is fine because I'm sure our battle reports have one or two rules mistakes in them. But they were using the rules, they were using all the rules immediately, but it didn't seem overly complicated, and they kept it pretty concise. It's definitely a very polished, like TV style production in some elements. It's got the old like American reality TV thing where they'll cut away to someone sitting outside and saying, "Yeah, and that was a great moment where I sent my orcs in there and I thought I had him."
Yeah, they are good. It's really slick. The models look great. The scenery is probably the standout thing for me. The boards and the scenery and the backgrounds.
I actually
So when we
think.
when we
What?
do our battle reports, Andy, you can see your couch and we see the hamsters in the background. With the
Guinea
Warhammer TV
pigs.
one, guinea pigs. I always do that. But with the Warhammer TV ones, you see, you see dark chasms and fire and blood and stuff in the background, making it look a bit more, fantasy.
Well, yes, they do have the very professional looking studio. My criticism of the battle reports was that the actual camera work during the game, it was pretty much just that overhead shot with then like the fancy close-ups of the miniatures like,
Yeah.
separated from the battle. I would have liked to have seen more of a occasional close-ups of the action from a bit of a lower angle. I don't
Yeah,
remember
that's
seeing
that's
too
a
much
big
of that.
yeah, that's a criticism when I've seen, when I've seen battle reports or live battles going on from tournaments, it's the same thing. You see those overhead shots and you can't really see the figures. You can't see the paintwork or the expressions on the faces or anything
Well,
like
it
that,
reminded me of the
you
old
know?
White Dwarf battle reports where they wouldn't actually show you the models on the map. They would just
Yeah,
have a little symbol
yeah.
for the unit and the arrows telling you where things were going, which are obviously represented by the glowing cube explosions and all that malarkey that was going on.
Yeah, it's it's a tough one, but you got to say, like, if over time the battle reports were to improve, it would be pretty amazing because they're already really good. They're
Yes, there's
already
a
really
lot.
slick.
As someone who's edited many battle reports, some of which have been vaguely similar, kind of ballparks of that kind of content, then even the level I've been putting out over the years took a lot of editing time. If you think back to before I was doing still picture battle reports, like our AOS games back then, where I would add music, different music on each person's turn, little graphics of like Jeff the Chimera swooping across the screen, that kind of stuff. It takes a long time, so
I
there's a lot
bet
of
you. I
hours
bet.
gone into that. So I can see why they didn't want to do that kind of content just for free on their YouTube channel. But they
I
can they
bet.
can definitely justify doing it if part of the reason people are paying for the service is to see that kind of.
It's interesting that they chose the Cruel Boys because their rule book isn't officially out yet. So
That's
that's
also a bit of a
that's
teaser though,
yeah.
because they showed us a few rules
Yeah.
that we hadn't actually seen before in that battle report that are from the battle tomes.
Yeah, I mean, I would have if you're going to do that, maybe they could have featured some of the models as well that haven't been released for the Cruel Boys. But my biggest that's not really criticism. My biggest criticism was that spoiler here, the Cruel Boys didn't win.
Well, I did think that the Cruel Boys, I don't know if it was intentionally sabotaging it, because obviously it's designed to sell products, these battle reports, be entertaining and sell products. I don't know whether being an authentic game of Age of Sigmar is actually on their agenda, and whether it's in some way staged. We obviously don't know that because we're not behind the scenes. But regardless, I thought the Cruel Boys player made a couple of really odd decisions, almost as if he wasn't particularly experienced in playing the game. I think one thing, it was like the first turn I think he used the finest hour ability on a hero that was charging into combat with one model that was already engaged by multiple other units. Like, it was just a waste of using it then, I remember thinking. Like, that's a weird choice someone would make.
Well, his general got taken off first turn pretty much. So he was really sucker punched, and if you don't have your general, you don't get any, you don't get any command points for the rest of the game. So he was really disabled.
You are down on command points, but there were other things that he could have done. Looking at it from the outside, I was thinking when he knew that there were Stormcast units coming down from the Celestial Realm, and he'd even said before the game, "I'm going to kill your general." I think that was one of the the pre-game type phrases he was using. Then you'd think, what about putting some? He did have some shooty units, didn't he? He had the man skewer. Yeah, those
no,
big crossbows.
He had some skewer boys. He didn't have the big.
Yeah, he had the man skewer, not the beast killer bolt or whatever it's called. He had the small ones because you could put those near your general. So if one unit's charging you in turn 1, then you're going to get the old Unleash Hell ability on them. Something like that. He didn't seem as knowledgeable as the other player.
No, he wouldn't be because it's a new army as well, and the Stormcast have been around a lot longer.
Well, that's what made me think it might be not exactly staged, but maybe they were engineering it slightly because I'm sure the Stormcast had to win.
Yeah, I think I was just sad that the Cruel Boys, I couldn't see their power really because they were so they got disabled in the first round, so I couldn't see what that general was really capable of. And I'm saying all this because I'm interested because I've just painted that model, so it was kind of cool. I've put a picture of it up for you, Andy. But in terms of the personalities, Andy, playing the game, how did they compare to me and you?
Well, obviously, GW are a massive company, and they have strict guidelines on the personas that are to be used by their on-air talent, shall we say.
So not incredibly good looking and funny. Is that
well,
something that
those are obviously going to be lacking when it's compared to our content. That just goes without saying. But there is also there's a layer between. I don't know if it's a full-on act that they're doing, but it's definitely some degree of performance that isn't how they would be necessarily if they were just playing the game between themselves. There's a lot of smiling going on generally on Warhammer TV, more so than a sane person would do, I think. As someone who smiles all the time, I think I can judge that fairly.
It's a very well-spirited game, isn't it? Important units get killed, unlucky dice thrown gets thrown, and they sort of laugh it off, don't they?
Yes.
Rather than being genuinely gutted that you've spent £100 on some models and 100 hours painting them, and they've literally been taken off in seconds. You don't get those reactions, do you?
You're going to get much more genuine reactions with battle reports that aren't affiliated with GW, aren't you? Because they're not putting across a brand. Because not only is it the Games Workshop brand, it's also a piece of founding content on their service that they're hanging their hat on for the next however many years. So they want everything to be absolute top notch, don't they? So if something on there, if somebody makes a comment that doesn't work in the context that it's being presented, they're going to go in there and they're going to edit that out, presumably, and make sure it's absolutely it's perfectly palatable, shall we say.
And let me make a comparison, if I may, Andy, with football matches. If you remember, back in the day, way back in the day, if a football match ended in a draw, they didn't have extra time, they didn't have penalties, they literally flipped a coin to see which team would win. And it's almost like in the early days of these official battle reports, it's almost like got that mentality of best of luck, good man, let's flip a coin. But perhaps if it could get more in the future, more competitive, you could get some real characters and real fired up Wayne Rooney's and people, flipping the table over in anger that they've been defeated.
There's two sides to this, because on the one hand, you could make it all about the personalities, and there's that quiz show on TV, isn't there? It's The Chase, I think, where they give the expert question meister, the general knowledge expert that they go up against the contestants. They give them their own little entrance, play a little music. the light dims and they walk out like dum 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 dum. You could do something like that and present them very much as a personality. Like, who's it going to be this week? Oh, it's that guy who's really competitive, and he like runs on. He's really angry.
I like that. I like that.
On the other hand,
I like
though, have they been burnt by Duncan?
And
Because
Rob as well.
they put
Rob,
a lot of stock into building up like the meme and the personality of Mr. Two Thin Coats.
yes.
And he then took that with him to set up his own little empire. And he's actually releasing his own brand of paints now, I saw.
Wow.
So he's directly competing not only on that front, but his painting tutorials and all the other content he puts out is going to be even competing with this service.
Wonder why he left, Andy. Maybe we could get him on the show.
Maybe they just don't pay that much money and he thought he could make more elsewhere while also deciding his own hours. Who knows? That seems like a pretty good idea to some.
He'd been there a long time, but also if you take Rob from the Honest War Gamer, he was a big personality when he first came on Games Workshop channels. He really like put a rocket up the bum of Warhammer in terms of like energy. You know what I mean? Energy behind the camera.
Yes, much more so than some of the current people they have on there, doesn't he? He's definitely more energetic and more jovial, a bit more banterish.
Yeah.
It actually worked quite well when he was teamed up with like a more analytical co-host.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
But there's a couple of big personalities there that will have taken bits of the audience away with them. And do they want to build people up in that way anymore as personalities, or do they want everyone to just be like a part of their empire, and if one person departs, they'll just slot someone else in without anyone noticing?
It's exactly the second thing you said, Andy, because having talked to people high up at Games Workshop, listened to them speak, reading their things in their investor presentations, they are a company that do not like boastfulness. They do not like ego. They're not that sort of company. They're very much into humility and self-effacitiveness. Does that make sense?
I think if you take out the two people that we just talked about that are no longer with GW, they had very distinct personalities.
Yeah.
A lot of the people on there now, I could tell you what they look like to differentiate them. I could tell you what their voice is like, probably, but I couldn't really tell you what personality traits they have that differentiate them from each other.
Yeah, they don't want a David Beckham in their team, Andy. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they don't want someone whose overall package is bigger than their brand.
No, they want Gary Neville's. What they want.
Yeah, loyal, reliable, with them to the end type person. I agree. I don't think that they will embrace the personality side of battle reports for that reason, because someone will just take off and start their own battle report channel.
And for that very reason, Andy, that's why there's such demand, for what we do, because we're giving the audience something they don't get, right?
Yes. I think when we are more familiar with all the rules and we can play a game in less than 6 hours, then I think even doing live games, I think would be quite fun for people to watch. When we've got it down to like a slender 4.5 hours per game, maybe we'll start doing that.
But you know what, Andy? Today I did. You said Remington, make sure you catch up with all the Warhammer Plus content so we can talk today. And so today, in my lunch hour at work, I watched the latest battle report, which is Blood Angels versus Orcs, and it's Louise Sugden, who's like a bit of a star at the minute at Games Workshop, more for being a painter, but now she's doing some of the battle reports, and it was really good actually. Someone I don't collect Warhammer 40k, I haven't had a game of it, but I got into this battle report, so it got me into it. And then I was thinking halfway through it, I wouldn't mind getting some more because these look like really good fun. So
well, that's the goal at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're entertaining you, so you get your money's worth for the subscription service, but at the same time, it's all designed to sell you stuff. So if they can pull off and keep that balance fairly square, if it falls too much in the way of salesmanship, and not enough entertainment, then people will catch on to that pretty quick. They won't stick around very long.
Andy, let's move on to the future of Warhammer Plus. Where can you see it being in 3 to 5 years?
I think it'll have a sea of content, and I think eventually they will see sense and move it all under one roof, one hub.
Yep.
So whether that's the My Warhammer page becomes warhammerplus.com, you log in there, you find all your videos there, all your Vault content there, information on the apps there, and then your Warhammer Plus app will then contain all the information you need on the Warhammer 40k app. Maybe it'll be part of the same app, the AOS app. Maybe it'll all be together under one app package. I don't know, but definitely it needs particularly just a web hub for everything. I think that's the main thing that'll be different.
Andy, I can see that being sorted in a matter of weeks, if not months. So
I would hope so.
You give me a grander vision, because the other thing is that the revenue stream is pretty interesting, because now they've got regular reoccurring revenue stream to be able to make content, to be able to pay people more, pay more professionals, pay for better content, right? Can you see the quality of the content being to the point where they're making Warhammer films in-house? You know,
they've got the resources to do it, presumably. So I don't see why not. It depends what kind of budget they would be looking at here.
I mean, can we see, like, you know, where Warhammer World is? They set up a Games Workshop film studio. Are we talking on that level, or do you think that's more like 10 years down the line?
I think that would be further down the line. I don't think, even though they're massive in industry standards, I think in terms of like film studio standards, I think it'd be a while. Yeah. If their animated content does really well, and they've got that one that's coming out on, is it Amazon at the point? If all of that goes down well, raises their stock, then that could be something to look into. But I think way more likely is that someone else come along and say, we want to make like the Horus Heresy be something like that.
That's the big one. That's the big one, isn't it? I mean, let's just take a franchise like Spider-Man, and if I'm not mistaken, I think, was it Sony that first had Spider-Man when they made the first?
I think they did have it, and then there was that whole dispute over who could use Spider-Man and all that.
Sure, and then, but you see, Marvel Studios wasn't what it is now, right? And now it's the biggest filmmaking studios in the world, right?
So are you saying that people should be careful who they license their property out for in long-term deals, because they never know if they're going to set up their own thing later and want their IP back? Exclusive use. Absolutely.
So I think Games Workshop will be keeping their aces, like the Horus Heresy, like Gotrek and Felix, things like that. And if something like Netflix wants to put out something, I think that will be more like less huge characters, maybe.
Could you imagine, though, a Gotrek and Felix series with a budget and a presentation like The Witcher?
And be amazing.
That would be amazing.
Be.
I'm just thinking about that now. I want to see that. I don't know if GW themselves could put that out, though. It would have to be someone else coming.
I mean, remember, The Witcher was a series of books to start with, and then it was the video game. So you could have, you know, we already know that Games Workshop have done pretty well with the video game IP, and they've got Total War Warhammer 3 coming up, right? So who's to say that they won't have their own gaming studios as well at some point? Right? They've got the beauty of this whole thing is that there's such a huge amount of content from the past and possible future things.
They have been very much about licensing things out, which has led to a lot of really subpar products, particularly like PC games. There's a lot of just shoddy kind of mobile style games just on Steam. Go on there, type in Warhammer 40,000. There's about 5 billion entries, most of which have negative reviews and just be woeful. Sure, but they would have a higher control over the quality. They were making things themselves. Ultimately, if that's a direction they're interested in going at some point, but if they want to become this massive media empire that doesn't license things, control everything themselves, I don't think they're quite ready for that.
No, not yet. But I mean, I remember there was a pretty bad Spider-Man film made in the late '60s or early '70s, and a pretty bad Captain America film. You know, so just think about the stuff they didn't agree to put out. How bad that must have been. But you know, I think Games Workshop are proving they can make really good content, really high quality content.
Shall we talk a little bit about their animation now?
Yeah,
Because the main one's obviously Hammer and Bolter that was right there at launch. And the
yeah,
first episode of that surprised me a little bit. The animation maybe isn't that incredible. I mean, you call it animation, but then certain scenes, there's not really anything moving except somebody's
yeah,
mouth, and sometimes that's not even moving. So they do lots of strategic zooming to give
yeah.
the illusion of movement a lot.
It reminded me of when I was a kid. There was a cartoon called Battle of the Planets. I don't know if you remember that.
I do not.
Um, yeah, it was wicked, but it was a bit like that mixed with a bit of sort of early manga. Um, but I haven't seen cartoons for ages, Andy. Right? But then so I thought, oh, this is a silly cartoon. Um, and then I watched them, and it's really dark, man.
The opening
It's like
scene of
really
Hammer and
dark.
Bolter, it's got someone's eyes bleeding out everywhere. And as soon as I saw
Yeah.
that, I thought, okay, this is actually going to be pretty gruesome. And then there's blood everywhere, there's limbs flying off, people getting decapitated left and right.
Yeah. So, I mean, what is Hammer and Bolter? Because before I saw the cartoon, I didn't know what it is. Is each episode a story within itself?
I
Does
haven't
it
gone on
seem
to
that
all the
way?
episodes yet, but
Right.
what have you made of it?
It looks like every story is a sort of episode within itself. You know, I'm just not well informed enough to know if it's all one
So it's
part of
not the
one big
ongoing
narrative.
story of this assassin team.
I don't know. I don't know, but the latest episode. In fact, let me just check because I haven't watched the. What? Let me just click Hammer and Bolter here. What have we got here? What episodes have we got? So I saw one episode about the orcs, and I think that was a free episode that you got to watch um, a week before the subscription thing
Wayne
started.
says, not fair to criticise an artistic decision. This style allows them to put these out fast. That is
Yeah,
true,
yeah, fair
but
play.
I didn't necessarily say it was bad. It's just clearly not like incredibly advanced animation in certain parts. It's
Yeah,
stylish looking. Visual
the,
art looks nice. Just
yeah.
there's elements to it. Were a couple of times where I found myself thinking, they could have had a little bit more movement going on in that scene. It's like when you watch the old cartoons and see the backgrounds repeat cars are driving.
Well, they've got 3 episodes up at the minute. The first episode called Death's Hand.
William
It's like
says
a
they're all individual stories.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm just about to say that the second episode is really dark, man. Really dark, and you know, it's got the influence of Zinch in there corrupting people. And the third episode is Old Bear Eye, and it's a narrative taken from the point of view of an orc shaman in 40K.
But we're going
That's
to be
pretty cool.
keeping an eye on all these animation, all the content that's pouring out. So I think each week we'll do a little segment where we talk about the new stuff that hit. Try and keep up with it as best we can.
Yeah.
And so
Uh,
you sent me some pictures of your interactions about the subscription free model.
I did because Andy, on the day of launch, you put out a couple of videos telling people how they can subscribe and where to go. And you bought the whole year subscription. I bought the weekly subscription, so you saved a bit of money there. Um, so, but what happened was you said you got to choose your miniature straight away. I couldn't find where I could choose my free miniature, and it was driving me up the wall because there was all these different pages, and I was logging into this and then that site and then this site. Couldn't find it, so I wrote to GW there with the message there. Hey, can you help? And it did say they'll get back to us in a few hours, but it took them a few days actually. But they did get back. He sent me a link, and I was able to choose my Orc Mega Boss. So, yeah, there you go.
So, any reason you went for the Auric Mega Boss? I went for the Assassin actually, even though I'm not that much of a 40k player. I just thought that was a cooler model. I think the Auric Mega Boss looks pretty much like all the other Auric bosses that we've seen lately.
Yeah, I agree. But the fact is, I'm just probably gonna more likely to use the Orc Mega Boss in my Gloomspite Gips and my Cruel Boys more than I would a Vindicare Assassin, right?
That is
So
reasonable.
why did you pick the Assassin?
I just think it's a cool model. Because I thought I'm probably never going to use either of these models in an army. And I'm not
Right.
just in the habit of getting these things and selling them off. If I wanted to just paint one for the fun of it, the Assassin, it's almost like a little diorama. I thought that would be kind of fun to do.
Yeah.
Who knows whether I'll ever get round to that. But I'm more likely to do that rather than the...
Well, I watched back to Warhammer CC. I watched Louise Sugden painting faces, how to paint faces, and I did use that technique in the latest paint job I've done. So I thought it was really good, really well made. So maybe you can show that in a sec, Andy. See, you could judge my paint work.
We will certainly get to your paintwork. So let's go through these things in order and blitz through a couple of things. So we've seen this guy, the Warhammer Underworlds. There's going to be the Cruel Boys up there.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got this. Do they tell you what it's called?
A little grot, isn't it? It's a little grot snagger.
Gickit.
Gickit.
So,
Like it. I
pretty
like
cool
them.
looking.
I'm going to get them. I want it.
They don't really show us anything else, so
Take my money.
there you go. Your money's being taken on that. And, oh, this looks bad. So, it's time for...
Remington's Millions.
Right, Remington's Millions. Have they become Remington's Pennies overnight? What's going on here?
Well, Andy, I thought I would front run Wall Street, and before Warhammer Plus TV was launched, I decided to sell some shares in another company I was up in and go in on GW big time. So over the last 18 months, I've been on a little investing journey. I bought a whole bunch of Games Workshop shares. They basically went up by 100%. I sold out in January, kept 0.1 shares, and was just biding my time waiting. And I thought, I can't wait anymore. I'm going to front run Wall Street. So the day before Warhammer Plus was launched, I bought 9 shares of Games Workshop. And you can see the dotted line there. That's where I bought at. So you can see that was £118, which it is a lot. It's a lot. And Games Workshop is at a high point. It's in the highest range it's ever been. When I first invested in them, they were something like £40. So they've almost tripled in value in the last 24 months or so. Okay. But I thought now is a good time because now they've got another revenue stream coming in. And I think that's going to be reflected when Games Workshop do their next quarterly or certainly 12 months earnings report. And when Wall Street realized this, they're already a very profitable company with no debt. I think these share prices could go up further. So I'm not bothered that I'm 0.68% down. You know, I'm in it for the long term now. I want to hold on to these babies and see what happens. And you know what, Andy? If the price dips significantly to around the £100 or less, I'll be buying more.
Well, there you go. Remington's in it for the long haul. And you said that last time you were in it for the long haul. So, true to your word, at least on that front.
Yeah. And every 3 months, we get that sweet dividend payment too.
Rumour Engine, it's a tyre. So, clearly not fantasy related at all. Some people are speculating it might be squats. I think that's a bit optimistic. The squats would be something that would definitely get my interest in 40k geeks. I don't know about yours.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be interested for sure.
It
Yeah.
would grab me, but maybe they're being a bit hopeful there. So next, we've got the return of the wildly popular What the Hell Is That segment. So, after the What the Hell Is That intro music, you'll find the brand new What the Hell Is That style, and just wait and see, because it's much more audience friendly, this one, I think you'll find. So, it's time for...
What the hell is that? What the hell is that? Is it a chaos dwarf or a vampire bear? Oh, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? Oh, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? Only Andy and Remington, Andy and Remy, Andy and Remington know. What the hell is that? What the hell is that? Is it Sigmar's beard or Neferata's hat? Oh, what the hell is that? Oh, what the hell is that? Is it a mangle squig or a sorcerer's rat? Only Andy and Remington, Andy and Remy, Andy and Remington know.
Okay, here we go. It's time for What the Hell Is That? So identify this miniature. See on the screen now. First one to get it is the winner.
Ooh.
So this is going to be all about speed, this one, because we're very slowly zooming out of this miniature.
Turquoise background. Is it Google Maps?
Someone is
looking at-
definitely going to get this. It's just a question of whether they get it when we're only seeing a tiny piece of it, or when it gets the full zoom out onto showing the whole miniature.
Looking at an aerial view of a beach in Bali.
Who's going to
No,
get
I'm
it
not.
first? We're seeing quite a bit of it now. Surely someone's going to get it before we see the whole thing.
It's a blue cloak.
Someone's going to get this rapidly now.
I think I know.
Let's wait for the audience. Who's going to be the first one to type the name?
No, it's not what I thought it was. I thought it was a Dreadfleet captain.
Well, we have a winner.
Oh, I know. Will Matthews. In like Flynn.
There you go. It is, of course, a Banshee. So what do you think of that new style of What the Hell Is That?
I love it. That was fun. Fast and fun. What did you like it? Well, Will obviously liked it because he got it right. And he wins something very special from Andy.
Yes, he's put into the winner's pool, which technically he's already in. So when we figure out what the prizes are going to be for that, then he will be a recipient. So every week, What the Hell Is That? It's back, baby.
Oh, David Kitely just missed out there. He put Nighthawk Banshee. Colin Mack wrote Ghost. Unlucky guys. You've got to beat the Will Matthews. He's so fast.
Yep, so I think that's going to be quite a fun one, because someone's guaranteed to get it every week. It's not like the obvious combinations of just different eyelashes of various miniatures that obviously a couple of people got. Most people have got no chance. So let's look at these pictures that you sent me. Looks like you've been feverishly painting your Cruel Boys.
Painting my Crow Boys, Eddie. Yeah, I really enjoy painting the shields. I've got to say, the shields are such fun to paint. If you're a fan of John Blanche's artwork, if you're a fan of the old school, sword and sorcery vibe and choose your own adventure books. I mean, I saw this image a lot in Ian Livingstone's, was it Steve Jackson's sorcery books, which I was a big fan of. Looks very much like the artwork from them old days. So those shields are the thing that attracted me, I think, most to the.
Shall I zoom in on it so we can assess your paintwork?
Oh God! Oh please don't.
There we go.
Oh no!
Look at that quality edge highlighting. You can actually see how it's done now. You can see where the brush strokes are.
That's pretty neat. That ain't
That
so
actually
bad.
looks good up close there. It stands up to scrutiny at close range. That one.
There's a little bit of pooling on the ink washes, but I think we can forgive that. It looks
And
like
it is
sort
Cruel
of-
Boys anyway. They're supposed to have been just having a dip in the swamp.
Yeah. Now the swamp beast he's riding was like, I wasn't a big fan of this model, to be honest with you, Andy. And you made me buy this part of the box from you, didn't you? So I did my best with it. I've put in a few angles there. So I've painted the crossbow guys, and I've painted half of the hobgrots.
It does look good actually. This beast. It looks kind of sickly and unwell in that sort of colour, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like I was thinking of putting like tiger stripes on it, and I've seen a few paint jobs that have that.
It's like a
But-
diseased rat.
Yeah, exactly that. one of the other gripes about this miniature is the Oryx legs. He looks like he's got really short legs and a really tall body. It's just weird. It is what it is. But yeah, it's actually quite enjoyed painting it. You know, once you get the base coats on and you figure out what colors you want to do what, it's kind of enjoyable, man. Look at that. Oh, that blue paint was terrible there, isn't it? I've got to tidy that up. But look at the foot there, Andy. Look at the green foot. That is a beautiful paint job on the Oryx foot there. Look. Keep and on yeah, I'm pretty pleased with the foots there. Look, they go well under scrutiny.
Correct
You
number
see?
of toes there. Next
Yeah,
one,
but
we've got the front view.
I think they
You've
look
been
safe,
doing
man.
some crossbows here.
Thanks, Colin. Very nice, Mr. Steele, says Stu. Bless you guys.
Crossbows ready to skewer those golden armoured stormcast, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean these aren't the sort of miniatures you paint beautifully because they're like from the swamp and they're kind of you know what I mean? They're a bit tatty.
I like the basing on these, actually.
Dang, I've actually run out of basing material, so I'm now down to my last dregs of like moss.
Does this mean you're going to have to go into another garden centre and steal some more?
I did. I saw on eBay you get this tub of different basing materials. I might just go for that. Quality Rems says David Kitely. Cheers, boss. Yeah, I put a bit of Nurgle's rot on there. You know, when it comes to bases, I just like put a mishmash of stuff down. It seems to work.
Close up of
Them
its butt here. If anyone wanted to see that.
Nice. Now, what I want you to focus on, Andy, is the face of the zombie whose head has been impaled at the top of this standard, and I used the color technique that Amy Sugden goes through in Warhammer Plus, and I must admit, I'm pretty pleased. It looks like he's got stubble.
Actually, very spicy.
Yeah.
Very
So he
nice.
did this pretty cool thing where like a face has 3 quadrants, you know, yellow forehead, red in the cheeks, and blue around the chin. And then if you use them to guide your painting, it helps.
Interesting.
So yeah, what do you reckon, Andy? Are you looking forward to facing these guys?
I am actually. I want to see if you can wield them a bit better than the guy they had in that official battle report. Sure you will.
Well, I tried, but the Stormcast have basically that battle report. They have such good saving throws that it basically saves their
Yes.
asses.
Got some pictures from the audience now that came from the Discord server. If you're not on there, you should be by now. So this is from Darb, and this is some Chaos Spawns.
Wow. These are really, really, really good. These are
So,
really cool.
nice and varied. What do we think? Some contrast paints being used here?
I don't have any contrast paints, Andy. So I think you'd have to guide us on that. I mean,
Some
I
of
did,
them look contrast. This one looks quite
Yeah.
contrasty.
Yeah. The blue looks cool, man.
That one maybe. This one, I think they may possibly all be contrast painted and then details painted in afterwards. So yeah, very nice.
Spawn,
Like the eyeballs.
they're not easy to paint, Chaos Spawn, because they're real mishmash of things. Torsos, eyes, legs, weird stuff going
Now,
on.
how about this? This is Cedar, also on Discord.
Ooh.
Some Liberators. Nice colour variety. Much more variety on them than you normally see on any individual.
Andy, do you think Cedar's been influenced by your paint job? Because I swear yours are that colour too.
Mine have a bit more gold on them, but it is a black and gold and purple colour scheme. So maybe influenced.
It's very illustrious paint scheme, that.
This one's like the more luxurious looking, slightly more fancy versions of my colour scheme, perhaps. The shields are almost the same as mine.
The silver looks a bit like amorite. You know, that stuff you paint on metal fences. When
Let's zoom right in, actually.
Yeah, when you put your second coat on, you get this grainy effect. Kind of cool, man.
I wonder if that's dry brushed. We didn't zoom in on these, did we? Oh yeah, we did. Okay, fair enough. We've zoomed in cruelly on everyone's page now. So, any other exciting developments in the world?
Have you been painting anything, Andy? What have you been up to?
Yes, actually, because I've got a Kings of War tournament coming up this weekend.
Ooh.
And I decided to take my goblins, not my Abyssal Dwarves, to this one. Because I played a couple of practice games and it's only 2,000 points. The new standard people think for Kings of War at the moment is like 2,300 or so. So I don't think my Abyssal Dwarves do very well at just 2,000. I don't have enough units. So I thought I'll take my goblins, get a load of trolls out. But then I looked and I don't have enough severed heads. Because I have a habit of giving out severed heads to anyone that beats my army during the tournament. So they can then wear it as like a badge, rest it on one of their units and carry it around with them.
What, severed heads? What?
Severed
what
heads of
creature?
goblins like this. Yeah. So I've only got 2 left, and there's at least 5 games in the tournament. So I have occasionally gone into a tournament with that few before and been fine, because I don't generally lose a lot of games. But I'm also out of practice at Kings of War, and some people have been playing it on Universal Battle non-stop for 18 months.
Okay.
It's very possible that everyone will crush me until I get back into the swing of things. So I've run out of heads, so I've been painting up arms as well now. Severed arms on a base. I'm getting those ready, and also this tournament has unique characters that you have to prepare a model for to get bonus points, and then you can use it in your army and it has unique rules. So this is the Kung Fu themed character that I have created here. So it's a Mantic model, but I've put like a Kung Fu headband on it.
It's like a sushi chef ogre.
It's work in progress. I've still got quite a lot on the skin and the clothing to do. It's only a few days till the tournament.
Andy, there's an old fantasy saying. If you haven't heard it before, or maybe in the audience you haven't heard it before, wise man once said, "You don't win anything with goblins."
Well, maybe that's why I've barely got any goblins in my list then.
Ah.
Because I've got 4 hordes of trolls and 2 giants doing most of the heavy lifting in battle. Although my giants, I'm having to actually make new bases for them. Because my giants were based on this size base. And then Kings of War got rid of small giants. Obviously they've got the Mantic giant, which is massive and comes on this base. So I'm painting these up and I'm going to have to just rest the old giants on top of that base. The tournament.
It's like a lot of work, Andy. I mean, this tournament thing, is it like, do you know, is it kind of the done thing where if someone beats you, you give them some kind of token?
I'm not the only person that does it.
I like it, man. I mean, I once saw a series of battle reports where the loser gives them a model with a standard. So they, like, if I beat you, I would get your standard bearer, or you would design one specially. You know, it seems like a pretty cool thing, because when armies used to defeat one another, they would take their standard, wouldn't they?
Yes, I do think that's cool. There are people that do it. There are people that I was inspired by to do it. Some people put a lot more effort into it than I do. I'm just painting a head or an arm on a base.
Yeah.
There are people that actually paint pretty much a full model.
And so have you collected any from people that you've defeated?
Yes. I've got like a tied up dwarf, which I can't remember. It may actually be from one of the old Warhammer sets.
Yeah, it would have been from the Battle for Skull Pass.
Yeah, I think that's what it's from. So there was someone in the community who was handing those out whenever, I think it was whenever the army was defeated. I'm not sure if it was just whenever their games were played. There are people that give you a trophy when you play against them regardless. Nice. And I've never been sold on doing that because I'm not sure people want to commemorate playing against me and just getting utterly crushed. So it seems a bit like...
It's a bit woke,
you like
isn't it? It's a bit, you get a prize just for being part of it.
But would you like it, though, if you've just been pummeled into the ground and someone says, "Here's a trophy"? It's like, would you really want to remember that moment forever? Just being trampled into the dirt? So I only give people a trophy if they actually beat me. A draw doesn't cut it either. It has to be a loss for me. Also, it cuts down the number of trophies I have to paint, which is a good thing.
Are you going alone? Are you going with anyone, Andy, to keep you company, or are you just going to be totally focused?
Well, I do know most of the people at the tournament.
Yeah.
But I'm not like hanging out with any of the other players beforehand or anything.
But this will be your first tournament, won't it, since the pandemic?
Yes.
Wow.
So it's been quite a while up in Manchester, where I moved from, which is handy because it means I can just stay with relatives. Don't have to get a hotel or something. That's nice.
Nice,
The
man. And what's the
2-day
grand
event.
prize?
I don't know what
is
the
there
grand prize is. Probably just a trophy. And I don't know if there's anything else on top of that. It's at Element Games, so maybe sometimes there's like an Element Games voucher if you win. But I'm not too bothered.
Element Games is a real place then, because I thought it was like a website. Is it?
It's
like
a website and also a gaming venue.
You always get discount, don't you? At Element Games, you get like 20% off Warhammer stuff, right? Or 10% or whatever.
They are one of the little retailers that do reduce the price on things compared to the manufacturers.
Well, how come they've never approached you to endorse them, Andy? Because there was a time when every other like YouTuber Warhammer would sort of be sponsored by Element Games.
I don't know. Maybe they're just not that savvy to know that they could boost their sales 3,000% if they had their logo plastered all over this channel.
Interesting. Well, you're going to be busting down their doors this weekend.
Speaking of boosting sales, by the way, Bad
Yeah.
Squiddo Games in the chat there. Of course, anyone placing an order on badsquiddogames.com should be using the special code you can find in the description. A chicken. So that's going to boost sales significantly every time I mention that. And yes, I am too big for Element Games. That is a fair assessment. However, I can tell you that I have got a product for review purposes from a company, which may involve transporting my army to this tournament in their product. So, if you stay tuned to this channel over the next couple of days, you'll see a video on my quest to go from using big unwieldy plastic tubs that aren't really like transport friendly to a much more sleek and stylish solution. You can look for that.
So not Chinese takeaway boxes that I've been using.
No, not takeaway boxes, not plastic bags. You'll see it's a luxury transport solution that ties in nicely with a lot of transporting miniature products I already own.
Fantastic.
There you go. Let's see what's going on in the chat at the moment before we wrap this one up. So will I do coverage? Yes, I will be taking pictures of all my games and then doing a full report on all of them after the tournament, which you can look forward to in excruciating detail. And thankfully I've got a good enough memory to do that. I know not everyone is capable of sitting there describing the last 5 or 6 games in a row that they had and recalling what was going through their mind at the time.
Andy, will Mantic be there covering this tournament?
I don't know if there's going to be any official coverage from Mantic, but I think there is going to be potentially some kind of coverage of the event from the organisers. If there is, I'll post it up somewhere so you can see it, especially if I'm going to be involved. I did have one of my games at Clash of Kings a couple of years ago streamed on the Mantic YouTube channel, and obviously I won the game because you were talking about. So when the bright lights are on, I'm obviously going to perform the utmost quality.
Absolutely. And Andy, what are you going to wear this weekend?
Orange.
You thought about that? Orange.
I don't know which t-shirt I'm going to wear yet. It's going to be orange, 99% sure. Maybe orange shorts as well, in case it gets a bit hot and sweaty and wargamery in there.
I wonder if any of them will have seen the battle report where I turned up in yellow and beat you.
Well, they're Kings of War players, so maybe 1 or 2 of them, but not a lot.
Interesting.
I know a lot of them do watch my battle reports, though. And at one event, I did have someone to come over to me mid-event and tell me that it just used one of the tricks that I was describing on a video the previous week to beat somebody. That was nice. Didn't use it on me, though.
Is there like a meta game that goes on in Kings of War? Like,
yes.
Are you a bit out of touch with that, or is everyone like at the same point? Do you think?
Well, the good thing about Kings of War is that there's no one army that dominates. When you go to a tournament, you usually see just about every army represented there.
Oh, cool.
You don't tend to see like 10 of something, because that's the new hotness. Because they don't release it in the same kind of waves that GW do. So when something first comes out, it's not overpowered compared to everything else generally. Release the book with all the rules at once.
Yeah.
So the armies are probably more balanced.
I think Do you think you'll probably see like more Mantic models now
Because
because
they're
they've got
nicer, yes,
yeah, and
definitely.
and and there's a bigger range, and people have had maybe more time on their hands, right, in the last 18 months.
Yes. So people have probably got armies painted, or maybe they'll just turn up with grey plastic because they feel like it during the pandemic. Who knows? But it's going to be a fun time had by all, except for those that I crush, my trolls. And I have seen that one person's brought, I think it's like 15 hordes of zombies or something, army, with some other units. But they're so cheap in points that you can just bring
Yeah.
millions of them and just flood the table with like zombies from edge to edge of the battlefield.
It sounds like that could be really boring though as well.
Well, potentially, it depends how they play it, and it is funny just to see it. You wouldn't like to play
Yeah.
it in every game, though,
No,
definitely, and I don't think it's going to be the new meta. A lot
no.
of effort to put in.
So Andy, let's round it off. Warhammer TV. Have you watched anything on it? Is there something are you interested in? Any of the videos that are on there?
The AOS
You
battle
haven't
reports
seen?
are grabbing me because it's going to help my flow of the rule.
Yeah.
Just
What
seeing
about?
it in action and presented in a nice, concise way is going to clear it in your mind and just keep it there, I think.
They've got the Learn to Play Blood Bowl, which I really enjoyed watching. I watched the first couple of episodes of that because there's different parts to it. Have you
I think
seen that yet?
I have not watched that yet. I think the animations are promising. They're not the kind of thing that would grab me necessarily, but the fact that I'm watching them for kind of a journalistic reason, I feel like I am going to get somewhat hooked a little bit and start paying a lot of attention. I don't know
Yeah,
whether I'm
they're
going to
not for
be
kids.
as engrossed as some people who are already fully within this universe, been enjoying the fiction for many years. I don't know if I'm going to go quite that far with it.
I'm going to get you to put your neck on the line, Andy. Do you think Warhammer Plus will still be around in 2 years, or do you
Yes.
think you do?
I don't think they just launched this half-heartedly. It may look like it because they've made some, let's just call them teething problems, shall we?
Sure.
One or two teething problems are there, but I think they'll iron those out. I think they'll stick with it. It may never be amazing. It may never pull in the kind of numbers that you see from other streaming services. But like you were saying it before, it's much more niche. It doesn't need to have as wide a pull as a Netflix. It just needs to do solid numbers. As long as they're outstripping their outlays and it's consistently going up, then they'll stick with it. If it starts tailing off, then we'll see what their commitment is. If they have to put in some time before it succeeds, we'll see whether they have the patience. I predict it will be around.
Do you think you'll be able to watch battle reports from tournaments through Warhammer TV rather than through Twitch? Or do you think they will extend it so you get the Twitch streams through it?
They could well do that, have like private Twitch streams that you can only see if you're a plus. I don't know whether they want to break. It's already kind of a revenue stream, isn't it? Subscribing on Twitch, you pay, I believe.
And finally, Andy, the big question is: what happens if and when Games Workshop approach us and say, "Do you want Andy and Rem show to be on Warhammer Plus?" What would you say then?
I think
Andy?
we'll say, show us the money, and then we'll tell you to add some zeros to the end of it, and then we'll talk properly. Now, I think it's time to wrap this one up. Unfortunately, we don't have time for the deep bath this week because this was such an in-depth conversation, but you will have noticed the text scrolling that all the patrons were thanked repeatedly throughout the show. So don't forget, support this channel, keep it afloat in these turbulent times, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and, of course, Remington's channel, which is linked in the description. Don't forget to join the Discord server, post pictures, join the Facebook group, follow what's going on, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. And Mr. Remington would like to say farewell to the audience.
Farewell to the audience.
Remember, what you seek is seeking you. And good night out there, whatever you are.
It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show on your screens tonight. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show for your home delight. We're talking about Age of Sigmar and anything else that is cool. Talking about Warhammer Fantasy, it's easy